Get informed. Get educated. It's all about your health. This is Healthy Living with Dr. Lateef Akinola.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Healthy Living podcast series. Today we have an eminent person in the person of Mrs. Biola Adewusi. Again, she's the second vice president of Association for Fertility and Reproductive Health of Nigeria. She's also the CEO and founder of Medbarn Agency. You are welcome, Mrs. Adewusi.
Thank you, Dr. Akinola, for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Today we are going to talk about third-party reproduction. What is third-party reproduction? This is basically the donation of sperm, eggs, or oocytes, as we call it in the medical jargon, and also embryo to an infertile couple so that they could have their own children. Third-party reproduction also includes surrogacy, which could, as we know, could be gestational or could also be traditional. And it's also involved the so-called 3-person IVF processes. And in that case, an egg is donated or the mitochondria is donated into another ovum, which is transported into an infertile couple who wants to have a children. And it could also be because they're having children, possibly because of genetic disposition in the family. Today, we are basically going to look at egg donation. Mrs. Adewusi is going to give us a breakdown, ABC indication, and what process this takes. Thank you. Mrs. Adewusi, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
We are basically looking at egg donation, and is another topical issue in the fertility arena in Nigeria. What specifically will you say egg donation is how is defined?
Okay. Thank you very much. Egg donation is very simple. Egg donation is a process where a young, healthy female between the age of 21 and 28 years old decides to go through assisted stimulation on behalf of a patient who otherwise is not able to generate good, healthy eggs of her own due to age or any other reason, maybe premature ovarian failure, and desires to have a child. So the egg donor would go through the process of in vitro fertilization, as in go through the stimulation, egg retrieval, and the eggs will now be combined with the patient's husband's sperm to generate an embryo, and the embryo will be transferred back into the patient for her to be able to have conception. So the process of the egg donation is just as simple as that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now, before we get into the process of stimulation, where do egg donors come from? What are the sources?
Egg donors are human beings. Egg donors are people that you and I see on a regular basis. They don't come from heaven. They're actually within our community. They're part of the ecosystem of assisted reproductive technology, because when a patient presents herself and she's unable to produce eggs of her own, we source for reliable and healthy egg donors. And these egg donors are sourced from either word of referral, sub-agent. Some of them even go online to contact clinics rather, and agencies like ours to make their intentions known that they would like to, be of assistance to help some patients that may need their help and offer themselves as egg donors.
Okay. Now, so in effect, you are saying that we could get egg donors from the IVF clinic itself,
Correct.
could get from agents.
Yes.
And then the intending parents also
Yeah.
can also bring their own
Yes.
egg donor, which could be a family, a friend, or a close associate. So in that vein, we are saying egg donation could be anonymous or non-anonymous.
Yes.
So those are the basics. But now, when we get the egg donor, how do we select?
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very good question, because it's not everybody that intends to donate or make themselves available to donate are eligible to donate. So they have to go through a very stringent screening process. Their hormonal profile would have to be checked. They have to go through some physical exams. They have to go through some psychological screening. They have to go through some counseling. They have to go through a lot of processes, even blood tests, to make sure that they're actually able to donate. They don't have any communicable diseases that would affect, either the patient or the baby. All these things would have to be done before. And of course, they have to sign an informed consent that they actually understand everything that they're going through or about to go through, and all the advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are enormous, because as an egg donor, you get to find out a little bit more about your own fertility situation as well. If there's so many donors that presents themselves that we've advised, you know what, you're not eligible, and if this happens, don't do this. If that happens, don't do that. We give them kind of like a blueprint of what they may possibly look out for in the process of them trying to have their own babies as well, because of the information that we have gathered for them. The disadvantages, of course, is the most common one is ovarian hyperstimulation, of course, and that can be very, very debilitating medical condition if it's not well taken care of. So all those things would have to be explained to the donor. They need to know the advantages, the disadvantages, the side effects, everything that is involved before they go through with it.
Thank you. So what you are saying in effect is that you have a donor. The donor needs to be thoroughly investigated. Is she healthy enough to donate? Does she herself have, enough egg reserve, to be able to give some of us away? And also, another thing that is going on is that they must be well counseled. We both agree on that. And then they also must be well positioned to do it, because there are various things there. There is commercial, there is non-commercial. Which one do we practice in Nigeria?
Well, it's kind of like there's a gray area there, because the truth of the matter is that these donors come and they go from clinic to clinic. How do you turn that? Because they look at it as, okay, this is a very easy and convenient way for me to make extra cash, and so I can do it as many times as possible. And that's one of the reasons why we're advocating, even though we're educating the donors while they're going through the process, that please don't do it more than 6 times in a lifetime. Some of them just go all out and just move from one clinic to another and keep doing it for many years, as long as they're eligible to do it. And this is one of the downside of not being able to actually track the donors to help them against hurting themselves. Because the truth of the matter is that the donors that are coming to donate are fine now, but at some point, the patient that they're trying to help was also fine when they were at that age. So they waited until either they're too old, to procreate, and then, the egg is gone, or maybe they face their career, or they're in denial, or they're just waiting, for one reason or the other, majorly because there's no sperm too, and they're hoping it would happen, but it never happened. And then by the time they resort to assisted reproductive technology treatment, it's too late. They need a donor. So that's why I said there's a gray area, because most of the time, you medical people, the doctors behind the scene would like to see that altruism in it, because the truth of the matter is that how much can you pay really to compensate an egg donor, because what they're doing is actually an art of kindness, and they, helping people, and they know that that's what they're doing, and they choose to do that while they're making a little change for themselves in the process.
Thank you. I know that in Nigeria, we don't have a code of practice that guides IVF or assisted reproductive technology process on its own. But in many countries, like United Kingdom, like USA, most parts of Europe, they have a code of practice that guides them. And it is known that in some of the countries like Italy or some of the Asian countries, egg donation is banned. It's not allowed. And in such instances, there is a strong regulation. But in Nigeria, because of the lax regulation, so we have a lot of controversies around egg donation. I'm sure you heard about harvesting eggs, all the bad social media. How do we counter this? AFRH itself must bring itself into order.
Okay, so thank you very much for bringing that up. First of all, there's nothing called egg harvesting in ART, in assisted reproductive technology. The people that want to sensationalize the process likes to use words that are very unappealing, derogatory, and very negative. There is nothing called that, and some people even call it organ donation and all that. No, because a woman, when she is born, a girl child, comes with many millions of eggs at birth. By the time she is at the age where she starts to menstruate, half of the eggs are technically gone. Okay, we're talking about what, 14, 15? And then by the time she's in her 20s, that's when she's most fertile. And we all know now that women face their careers and not worry about settling down to get married, get Mr. Right. They don't really look back until they're in their 40s and sometimes in their 50s. That's when they're ready to start having a baby. And by that time, the egg reserve is gone. So what do? Because they desire to have a child of their own, and due to one reason or the other, I don't want to use the word ignorance, or maybe not being aware or not being educated, they just waited till it's too late. And once upon a time, they also had very good ovarian reserve that just wasted away because they waited for too long. So the sensationalization of the fact that, people, they pay them peanuts to withdraw their eggs and they will not be able to have babies in the future, and they're putting their lives at risk. All this negativity is actually called for because it's a medical condition faced by a patient that deserves medical treatment. WHO already established the fact that infertility is a disease that needs to be treated. And one of the options is to have egg donation, which is globally practiced. AFRH, as an association, self-regulates itself. So we have a guideline talking about egg donation, surrogacy, ART treatment, what's supposed to be in place, what you're considered to be depending on the capability of what you're able to do in your facility, the different tiers of IVF, treatment facilities. So you be categorized as such based on what you're able to offer. So we self-regulate and guide ourselves to make sure that we're doing the right thing at all times.
Thank you. I know that some of our young ladies, undergraduates, even those who are, learning many jobs, some of them see this as a lucrative way to make money. And they do go from one clinic to the other, as you mentioned. And then we also know that some of these young ladies even call clinics. Do you need egg donors? Do you need egg donors? And some of them, as they even donated more than once. And in some countries, it is not allowed to even donate, more than once. Some you cannot donate at all. Now, how do we counter this? How do we counter one, the donors going from one clinic to the other and pretending that they have never done it before? Because as we mentioned, there are risks, associated with this, to stimulate, to collect the eggs, and then their own future as well. And so they need, which they, of course, the clinic will give them proper counseling.
Yeah.
How do we counter girls going from one clinic to the other and donating, putting themselves at risk?
Thank you very much, Dr. Akinola. When I was in the clinical space, working with a top IVF clinic in Lagos, I was the IVF coordinator. I was in charge of actually doing the final screening and interview to qualify donors and surrogates alike after they've gone through all the necessary tests. So during that time, I quickly realized that there's something missing in the process that we have as clinics. And then I wished that there was a system I could quickly go to and pull up information for a quick reference, because I often find out that half of the time they're telling you what you want to hear and not the truth. And this gave me very, very big concerns. And that's the reason why I decided that when I get to be on my own, this is going to be one major project that I was going to work on. And that's the reason why Medbarn gave birth to a donor database management, surrogate database management called the QUEEV. And this is supposed to actually track donors from clinic to clinic using their unique identifiers. As long as the clinics are gracious enough to enter the information of this donor in that database, it can be called up anywhere in Nigeria to cross-check where she has been, how many times she has donated, and what the outcome of that cycle that she did was. The advantages of using this software or this app is to be able to make sure that we protect the donors against themselves, because sometimes they don't understand the disadvantage of going from one clinic to another and hopping around, donating 20, 15, 25 times just because they can do it. And there's no way those clinics will know. If a donor shows up and say, I've never donated before, how would you know? You'll never know. Unless she just got off the retrieval table and came to you, which has happened before. It's so funny. I had this donor came in, presented herself. She wants to be an egg donor. She just had a retrieval a few days ago. I popped in the ultrasound probe and I saw just freshly retrieved ovaries. And I told her, I said, well, you just told me that you've never donated before, but I can see that your ovaries were just freshly retrieved. That was when she started telling me the truth. But there is no reason for us to be going through that length before we actually discover, where they have been and how they have done. And I know that there's a need for it. We, the practitioners, are suffering too much from these donors not saying the truth. And they're not helping us by lying to us because they don't understand that they're hurting themselves. So as a body of professionals, we need to embrace this particular software app and use it to be able to help, even if we consider it that it's a corporate social responsibility on our part to protect these donors and to actually have a history of them in a database that shows where they've been, how they have done, and how many times. That will really, really, really go a long way in protecting these donors.
But how many people or how many fertility practitioners in Nigeria know about this?
Well, I tell you, when I became independent, let's put it that way, and I am no longer in paid employment, I started to, I in fact started with the Lagos State government. I went to the Ministry of Health. I gave them a presentation on this app, and I actually called the very big clinics and gave them a presentation about it, both in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. And they were very welcoming of the software and the app to be able to track, and they thought it was a fantastic idea. But unfortunately, I mean, he ended there. I mean, he ended at the compliments. He ended at it's a very, very good idea. It's good, concept. It would really help, to track these donors. But, yes, some of the clinics actually wanted to get on board, but unfortunately, they just never got around to it. Maybe because they thought, okay, that's one extra work that I have to do. But at the end of the day, if you do that single entry and you're able to go and cross-check anybody that walks through your door, because these donors, like we just explained, will go everywhere. They'll call, they pick up the call, they get on the internet. They're very smart, they're very savvy, and call everybody. And if 5 clinics says come in, they would go in for screening, and whoever calls them first, they go. If they finish, they go to the next. If they finish, they go to the next. But if we're tracking them as they're coming into this database, we'll be able to know, XYZ has been to ABCDE, not a good candidate. Or we can decide, let me take the chance. I know she's done it 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. I still want to take a chance. It would be your decision, but at least you have that information about that donor.
So, why has the uptake of this been so dragged? Is AFRH involved? If the Ministry of Health, did they buy into it? And how can we, upscale the usefulness of this?
The Ministry of Health actually, specifically her pharma, thought it was a fantastic idea. And they're really, really looking forward to the uptake. However, the uptake from the clinics, the different clinics, AFRH is aware that, I am actually promoting a software like this, but it hasn't been adopted as our official platform to upload donor information for easy reference. However, the Fertility Support Professionals Association are on board. We actually had a retreat recently, and we all discussed the challenges that we have with these donors and surrogates. And the conclusion is that all the members of FSPA that is involved in third-party reproduction will get on board with this software and start using it. So that would be our baseline, to make sure that at least we have information shared amongst each other, and we'll be able to do a quick reference, to checking and, making sure that we are also doing our best to prevent any unnecessary mishaps, with these donors.
Okay, thank you. Now, one of the downside of electronic medical records, which I believe this your software app is, going to be categorized among, is confidentiality.
Yeah.
Has that been a problem? Why others are not buying into it?
So yes, thank you very much. Confidentiality is actually a concern, but the truth of the matter is that the goal of the software is not to expose anyone. It's actually to protect the patient, which is the donor in this instance, and the surrogate in this instance, and the service provider. So basically, this information is going to be consented. Okay, so by the time they're giving us information, there is a consent that we can actually share your information for the purpose of what you're doing in this space, not outside that space. So if you're consented to go through the procedure in that ecosystem, your information will be available to someone that may possibly want to, use you for treatment as well, which will invariably protect the donors or the surrogates from harm. So it's protecting them, to be honest, and it's protecting the clinics and the practitioners from, getting in trouble.
So, who will have access?
The medical practitioners or the agencies, so it would be more like the clinics and the support service agencies. Now, there's another angle to the software. We're building another angle where if a patient wants to explore the option of going through the database to recruit a donor of their choice, we're exploring that angle too, but that angle is still on the developmental stage at this time.
Where is the data kept?
The data is kept in the cloud. It's definitely in the cloud.
So, what's robust security we have?
Well,
I was celebrities, they do have their cloud accounts hacked, and all their pictures all over the place.
So for this particular software, I was told that there are multiple levels of secured circuit layers that have been put on it, because of course the government also says that we have to have some level of responsibility once the information on the database is over 1,000. So we have to register with, the agency to make sure that we actually are aligned with all the processes to secure this information as well, and all the technology end of it. Of course, there are different layers of security that goes into it. So if you crack one, it's very difficult to crack the next. So it's layered security.
I can agree with you, Ma. This idea of a national database is fantastic, but I'm sure that, like all databases, there are some pros and cons. People that are coming to be registered will either want to be anonymous or non-anonymous. What about if a donor refuses to register for your database? How do you track that kind of donor?
That's a very good question. And the only thing that comes to mind is that if a donor presents itself or herself, and insists that they don't want to go on the database, they just want to go through the egg donation and move on with their lives, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. And I think that kind of donor should be flagged as such. And that brings us to a setting part of the software that would have the flagged donor. So if you have a donor that shows up and you're not able to trace the history of the number of times that they've donated, you should be able to see them in one corner as flagged that, okay, this person exists, possibly going around. We don't have information because there is no consent, but, they exist. So that way, the clinic would have an idea that, there's a possibility that she's going around, but we don't have any information on her.
Oh, I mean, it's glaring now that this registry is a robust way to track, multi-donors, those who go around donating all the time. However, it also needs some financial muscle. So how do you, maintain this? Are there any funds from the government, or is it a personal fund? Or the clinic you have to be?
Okay, so
Because it's of national importance.
It's of national importance, but when I had the epiphany to start the software, I knew that it's something that is needed. And the thought process didn't just start when I decided to start developing the software. It started many years before. And when I started, I knew that I had to start this with my own money. And that's exactly what I did and what I have been doing. At the end of the day, if this takes off and AFRH, for instance, or all the clinics get on board, then it'll make a whole lot of sense, because the charge that will be on pulling up data would be so minimal and be worth it at the end of the day to get a piece of information that is required. Just like we run the unique identifier through a certain database and we pay a stipend, is the same way a stipend will be paid to find out information about a prospective donor that comes through to the system. So yes, I have single-handedly financed the software to be built.
So the maintenance will now be clinics that are registered to put,
Correct.
To access that database, put their own donors on that database, will pay,
Yes.
for the maintenance and subscriptions of the
software.
Now, are there any other countries where you feel they are using this software?
I actually did some research when I thought about it, so I can have something to leverage on. But unfortunately, there's none that I know of at this time. No.
Do you look up to making a presentation about this during the coming September annual conference, AFRH?
Well, Dr. Akinola, it's very difficult to be the LOC chair and be given a presentation.
One of your staff can talk about.
Well, we're going to have an exhibition stand at the AFRH conference, and it's going to basically focus on queef. So the Medbarn exhibition stand is going to be there, so be on the lookout. You'll get more information about the queef app.
So there you go, our audience. We've heard about the importance of this registry to track donors, especially those who are bent on donating many at times because of the financial gains. However, we still need to make a lot of publicity about this registry. And we also, for sure, we need to tie up the security apparatus around it so that it's a secure database. And it's only those who have the new needs to access it will access it.
That's good.
And the donors out there, we must, let them know that all these things, all these layers of multiple protective avenues where we are raising, it's not for us. It's not for the clinic. It's for them.
Yes.
How do we convince these donors to, come on board your registry?
It's very important for the donors to know that it's an advantage to them, even though they would feel restricted because, according to the global standard, you are only allowed to donate not more than 6 times in your lifetime. But the truth of the matter is that you as a donor would also have to consider yourself and just look at your health and know that this thing you're doing is not to be making money every month or every other month for the next 4 or 5 years because you're within the same safe age range. It can actually affect you negatively. And also, we want to prevent a case of consanguinity or what?
Consanguinity.
Yes. Where you've donated so many times and, you possibly have very successful outcomes and, you have many offsprings out there. It's very important to have that, guide and regulation. And it's to protect you as donors. It's to make sure that you're safe. It's to make sure that you're donating within reasonably safe and conducive environment. And as practitioners, we have your best interest at heart. We don't want any harm to befall you. We want you to also get to the point where you want to have your own children, and you're able to do so with ease without having to wonder whether it's the reason you're not having kids is because you donated. I always warn donors that come. I said, see, you're donating now. Do not wait until you're 40 to start trying to have babies, because you will find yourself in the same situation this person you're trying to help is at this time. So please, all the information that you get during this donation process, take it very seriously and take it to heart, because it would help you in making decisions for yourself in the future.
Yeah, thank you. There you go. And all the information about egg donation is out there. Getting egg donation, we all know about. Mrs. Adewusi has mentioned sources that we go through to get donors, from the clinics, from the patients, intending parents, and also from agencies. However, selection process is a strict criteria, because these donors will undergo some strenuous screening in terms of blood laboratory tests, infection screening. We also do their own egg reserve. The ones that are below egg reserve, we exclude them. And of course, their future is also in our hearts. We also tell them that, look, what you are going to do, although you may or may not be compensated, depending on the agreement you have with your clinic, and there are risks. Overstimulation is one of them. Infection is one of them. Injuries during the ejaculation is one of them. That is why it is important to encourage and promote Mrs. Adewusi's endeavor, where we can have maybe something like a registry that could, track all this and prevent abuse of donors by themselves or by the fertility practitioners. Thank you, Mrs. Adewusi, for coming. I know one thing, that the national government in Nigeria, they are trying to make laws.
Yes.
Where are we in the process?
So the laws in Nigeria is right now focusing on surrogacy, and AFRH is trying to encourage and convince them that the law should be all-encompassing. So it should be on ART, and if it's on ART, it would now include donors, it would include surrogates, it would include practice, it would include, the facilities, it would include a lot of things that is very important in this space.
Oh, thank you so much. But are we very close to achieving it, or very far away?
Well, until we get there, we don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, we have been at this for a long time now coming, and we're still at it, and we're hoping that it'll be soon as opposed to much later.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And there you go. If you have any questions, please feel free to address it to the phone numbers, shown on the screen. Thank you for listening. This is another episode that is, entertaining, enlightening about the process of IVF. And it's also indexed on the Healthy Living podcast series. Until we come your way next time, thank you and bye for now.